The night she laughed in my face was the night something broke for good. You think you can handle coldness. You think you can stomach silence. But when the person you built your life around looks you dead in the eye while you're begging for a reason, and she just smiles, like your pain's an inconvenience, that's the kind of moment you don't come back from. You ever had that, man? You ever watch your own heart shrivel up while she acts like you're pathetic for caring? I've spent most of my life with dirt under my fingernails and wire burns across my palms. Being an electrician isn't glamorous, but it's real. You pull the cable, you twist it right, it works. Simple. I like that. I like knowing what to expect. Hell, I thought marriage would be the same way. You put in the effort, you show up every day, you get something solid back. But that's not how it goes, is it? When we first met, she liked that I was the guy who fixed things. Not just outlets and breakers, but little annoyances, squeaky doors, crooked shelves, leaky faucets. She'd call me her steady hand. Back then, I believed it meant something. I'd come home from 12-hour shifts with sweat soaking my collar, and she'd smile, kiss my cheek, ask if I wanted to shower before dinner. Those were the days I still felt like a man in my own house. But it didn't last. Nothing real ever does, I guess. It started small. She stopped meeting my eyes when I talked. She'd pull away when I reached for her. Said she was tired. Said she had headaches. I told myself it was just stress, that if I worked harder, earned more, she'd come back to me. So I signed on for every overtime shift I could get. I'd get home so worn out I couldn't even take my boots off without sitting down. And she'd be there on the couch, tapping her phone with that blank expression, like she was waiting for something better to happen to her. The first time I lost my temper, it surprised even me. I came home early, trying to be the good husband who cooked dinner for once. Thought maybe it'd remind her we used to be a team. When she walked in, she didn't look at the plates or the candles. She just wrinkled her nose like I'd done something stupid. "You're trying too hard," she said, her voice flat. "Trying too hard? To what, make this work?" I asked. My voice came out hoarse, like I'd been screaming already. She shrugged. Shrugged, like none of it mattered. "It's just, too late." I swear to God, something in me cracked open then. My hands started to shake. I had to set down the serving spoon so I wouldn't throw it across the room. Too late. I almost laughed, but it came out like a choke. I've been killing myself to hold this together. And you can't even pretend you give a damn? She met my eyes and smiled, a thin, dismissive thing. "You're overreacting. You always do." That was the first time I thought I might actually hate her. I spent that night sitting in my truck in the driveway, engine off, listening to the radio static. I couldn't bring myself to go back inside. You ever feel like you'd rather sleep anywhere else than under the same roof as someone who looks at you like you're a burden? I thought about all the years we'd had. The little traditions, Sunday mornings with cheap cinnamon rolls, Friday night takeout from the Thai place she liked. The time she'd lean on my shoulder, saying she was glad she'd married someone solid. All gone. The next day, I tried to apologize. I don't even know why. Maybe because I couldn't stand the idea that we become those people, two strangers waiting for the lease to end. "I'm sorry," I yelled. I told her in the kitchen, my voice low. She didn't look up from her cereal. "You always say sorry. It doesn't change anything." I gripped the counter so hard my knuckles went white. "Then tell me what does. Tell me what the hell you want." She set the spoon down, finally meeting my eyes. "I don't want this anymore." That was the moment I knew. Nothing I did, no overtime, no gestures, no apologies, was going to fix it. Still, I kept trying. Like an idiot, I kept thinking if I just held on a little longer, she'd come back. A week later, her sister called me. "Ellie, we'd always gotten along." Though she kept her distance, probably out of loyalty. Her voice was tight, almost guilty. "Look," she said, "I don't know if I should be telling you this." I rubbed my forehead, exhausted. "Just say it." "She's been seeing someone for a while now." "I thought you should know." I didn't answer right away. My pulse went strange in my ears. "You're sure?" She was quiet for a second. "Yeah, I'm sorry." I closed my eyes, fighting that sick feeling in my gut. I should have felt surprise, but all I felt was confirmation. Like the last piece finally clicked into place. Ellie sighed. "If you want to talk." "I'm here." I almost laughed. "Thanks. That makes one person in your family who gives a damn." I didn't say anything to my wife that night. Just watched her move around the living room, humming under her breath like nothing had happened. My hands itched to grab her, shake her, demand to know how she could be so calm. But I didn't. I went to the garage instead, sat on my workbench staring at the shelves. That was the first time I thought about what it would look like to be free of her. No more trying to win her back. No more wondering if she'd ever look at me the way she used to. And for the first time in months, I felt something like relief buried under the rage. After Ellie called, every look, every shrug, every forced smile from my wife made more sense. And it made my skin crawl. You'd think finding out she'd already moved on would make it easier to walk away. But it didn't. It just made everything meaner. Like all the wasted years were mocking me. The next morning, I tried to act normal. Made coffee. Toasted bread. She came down in that faded robe she always wore, scrolling through her phone. She didn't even glance at me. You going out tonight? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked up, slow and deliberate. Why do you care? Because I want to know if you're planning to come home at all. She set her phone down and tilted her head like she was studying a bug on the counter. You're being ridiculous. I slammed my hand flat on the table. The mug rattled. Am I? Or is it ridiculous that I'm the only one who still gives a damn? Her lip curled. You don't get to play the martyr. You've been checked out for years. I stood there, my jaw clenched so tight it hurt. I've been killing myself to hold this together. She actually laughed. A short, mean sound. Congratulations. Maybe you should have worked harder at being interesting. I swear to God, I almost put my fist through the wall. Instead, I just turned away, because if I looked at her another second, I was going to lose it completely. At work that day, Gus took one look at me and shook his head. You look like you haven't slept in a month. I kept my eyes on the panel I was wiring. It's fine. You keep saying that, he said quietly, but you look like you're about to snap. I didn't answer. He didn't push. That's one thing about men like us. We don't always need to say it out loud to know. When I got home that night, she was in the living room, her legs tucked under her on the couch, watching some reality show. Like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't gutted me that morning. I stood there in the doorway, just watching her. She finally looked up, annoyance in her eyes. What? I walked in slow, so she'd see I wasn't going to pretend anymore. I talked to Ellie. That got her attention. Her mouth went tight. Did you? She told me everything. Her eyes flicked away, and for a second I saw it, guilt. But it vanished quick. It's none of your business. I laughed, but it sounded cracked. None of my business? You're my wife. She shrugged, picking at the blanket draped over her legs. Not in any way that matters. Something in me snapped. My voice came out raw. How long? How long have you been lying to my face? She didn't answer. Just kept her eyes on the TV. That was worse than any confession. That was contempt. I stepped closer, my hands clenched. You don't even have the decency to admit it? She finally looked up, and I swear she was smiling, just a little. Why should I? You already know. I almost lost it. My chest was heaving. And I felt this wild urge to tear the room apart. Instead, my voice broke. I gave you everything. You think this is some kind of game? She tilted her head. It's over. Just accept it. I had to look away because my eyes were wet, and I hated that she could see it. I hated that she could make me feel so small. I slept in the truck that night. Couldn't stand the thought of hearing her footsteps upstairs, of smelling her shampoo in the bathroom we used to share. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. A message from Ellie. You okay? I almost didn't answer. But then I typed back. No. A minute later, if you need to talk, call me. I didn't call. Not then. But I kept reading that message over and over, like it was the only sane thing left. The next day, I came inside just long enough to grab a clean shirt. She was at the kitchen counter, tapping on her laptop. She didn't look up when I walked past. You know, I said, voice low, one day you're going to realize how much you threw away. She didn't answer. Didn't even flinch. I turned to leave, but she called after me, her tone sharp. Don't try to make this about you being a saint. You weren't enough. That's all. I spun around, and for the first time, I didn't hold back. Maybe I wasn't enough for you. But at least I'm not a coward hiding behind my phone and my lies. Her mouth twisted into something cruel. You were never going to be enough. You just don't get it. I stared at her, my hands shaking. No, I finally do. I left before I said something worse. That night, I called Ellie. She sounded tired but gentle. Thank you, I said. For what? For telling me. For not letting me keep lying to myself. She was quiet. I'm sorry it had to come from me. I swallowed. Don't be. You did the right thing. After a pause, she said softly, you deserved better. The way she said it, quiet, certain, made something in me loosen. Like maybe not everyone thought I was worthless. I spent the next few days thinking. Not working. Not sleeping much. Just thinking. About the years I'd spent giving her everything. About how she looked at me like I was a nuisance. About how she'd smiled when I was breaking apart. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized I wasn't going to leave my own house. Not when I bought it with my money, wired every outlet, painted every wall. She could leave. I just had to find the right moment to tell her. The morning I decided I wasn't leaving, I felt calmer than I had in months. You ever get so tired of being humiliated that it just flips into something steady? Like all the fear and guilt and trying finally burn off, and what's left is clean anger. The kind that doesn't shake or break your voice. I waited until she came downstairs. She was wearing that same blue blouse she always put on when she was going out. Not for errands. For him. She didn't even bother to hide it anymore. She glanced at me standing by the door and rolled her eyes. What now? I took a slow breath. You're leaving today. Her eyebrows lifted, like I'd suggested she fly to the moon. Excuse me. You heard me. My voice was so calm it surprised me. You're packing your things. You're taking your car. And you're leaving this house. She leaned against the counter, folding her arms. You don't get to decide that. I nodded toward the framed mortgage papers on the wall by the stairs. I bought this place. I've paid every bill. You want to pretend you're done? Fine. Be done somewhere else. Her lips curled in a smirk. You're pathetic. I stepped closer so she could see I wasn't bluffing. No. I'm finished. You can't keep standing here, using my electricity, eating my food, driving me insane, and acting like you're the victim. She tilted her head, voice dripping with disdain. You really think you're strong enough to throw me out? I smiled, but there was nothing warm in it. Watch me. We spent the next hour fighting. Loud. Ugly. I don't even remember every word, just the heat in my chest, the way my hands wouldn't stop trembling. At one point, I slammed my palm on the table so hard the salt shaker jumped. I gave you everything. Years. And this is how you ended? With a smirk, she shrugged, her voice bored. You were always so desperate to be needed. It was pathetic. I felt something rise in my throat, some combination of rage and grief, and before I could swallow it down, it came out. You are the most selfish person I've ever met. She looked almost amused. Then why don't you do us both a favor and let me go? I took a step back, wiped a hand over my face. I'm not letting you do anything. You're leaving because I'm done living with someone who hates me. She gave me that small, cruel smile again. You don't have the guts. That's when I knew there was nothing left to save. I grabbed the duffel bag from the hall closet and tossed it onto the couch. You have an hour to pack. After that, I'm calling the locksmith. Her eyes went wide, and for the first time, she looked a little scared. You can't. I can, I cut in, my voice steady. And I will. She stood there, staring at me like she couldn't decide if I was serious. But I didn't move, didn't flinch, just crossed my arms and waited. Finally, she turned away and stomped upstairs. I listened to her closet doors banging open and shut, the drawers sliding out. It felt unreal, like I was watching someone else's life. While she was packing, Ellie texted me. You okay? I typed back. I told her to leave. A pause. Then, good. You deserve peace. I set the phone down, feeling something loosen in my chest. She came down an hour later, dragging 2 suitcases behind her. Her face was blotchy, her eyes red. But I didn't feel sorry. Not anymore. She stopped in front of me, her chin lifted like she was trying to salvage some dignity. You'll regret this. I looked her dead in the eye. No. I've been regretting every day I let you stay. She opened her mouth, closed it again. Then she pushed past me and walked out the door without another word. The screen door slammed behind her. I watched through the front window as she threw her bags into the trunk of that old Honda and climbed in. For a second, I thought she'd look back. But she didn't. She just started the engine and drove off. I stood there in the quiet house, my chest heaving. I expected to feel relief, or victory, or something clean. But all I felt was spent. Like a man who'd finished digging a grave. I sat down at the kitchen table, dropped my head into my hands, and let myself feel it all. The shame, the anger, the bitterness, the relief. And the strangest part? Under all that, there was something close to peace. Not because it didn't hurt, but because I knew I'd finally done what needed doing. Later that night, Ellie called. Is it done? She asked, voice soft. Yeah. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I know she was my sister, but she didn't deserve you. I didn't know what to say to that. So I just let the silence stretch between us. Then she cleared her throat. If you ever want to talk, or just not be alone, I'm here. Her voice wavered just a little. Enough that I finally looked up from the floor and let myself feel how much it meant that somebody was on my side. Thank you, I said. And I meant it. I slept in the bed alone that night, and it felt better than any night I'd spent lying next to someone who wished I wasn't there. You ever feel that, man? That moment when the anger finally burns out, and all that's left is the quiet certainty that you survived? I didn't know what would happen next, but for the first time, I was ready to find out. The first week without her felt like stepping into some other man's house. Every corner reminded me of what used to be, her mug in the sink, the throw blanket she never folded, the picture frame on the hallway table with our faces pressed together like we were the happiest people alive. I boxed it all up, every reminder, carried the cartons out to the garage and left them there. I didn't want to look at her smiling face when she'd made it so clear she'd stopped caring. The neighbors pretended not to notice. Carol across the street gave me a sad little nod the first morning she saw me taking out the trash alone. My buddy Gus dropped by with a 6-pack and sat on the porch without asking questions. That's how men like us say we care. No lectures. Just being there. Ellie started calling every couple days. At first, it was just a check-in, to see if I'd eaten, if I was sleeping at all. But after a while, her voice started sounding different. Softer. Like maybe she needed the calls as much as I did. One night, about 2 weeks after I kicked my wife out, Ellie texted me. You home? Yeah, I typed back. Mind if I come by? I stared at the screen a long minute before I answered. Sure. She showed up in jeans and a loose sweater, her hair pulled back. She looked tired, like she'd been carrying someone else's secrets too long. We sat at the kitchen table, both of us cradling mugs of tea neither of us touched. Finally, she spoke. I'm sorry. For everything. I shook my head. You didn't do anything. She looked at her hands. I knew for a long time she didn't appreciate you. I thought maybe she'd figure it out. She didn't. No, Ellie whispered. She really didn't. We sat there in the quiet, and it felt easier than it should have. No pretense. No trying to be polite for her sake. Just two people who'd been burned by the same fire. After a while, she reached across the table and set her hand over mine. Just a small, careful touch. My first instinct was to pull back, to feel guilty. But I didn't. Because for once, someone's touch felt honest. You didn't deserve how she treated you, she said. I swallowed hard. I tried everything. I know. And it wasn't enough. She looked me dead in the eye. It would have been enough for someone who actually cared. A few days later, she came by again. This time, she brought takeout. No big declarations, no expectations. We ate in the living room, the TV humming in the background. At one point, I realized I was smiling. Really smiling. It scared me a little. But it felt good too. Ellie never pushed. Never tried to pretend she knew exactly how I felt. She just showed up. And that was more than I'd had in a long time. About a month after the split, my ex tried to call me. I let it ring. She texted instead. We should talk. I ignored it. The next day, I think we made a mistake. Maybe we can figure it out. I read that one 3 times. My hands started to shake again, but not from sadness, just from the sheer nerve. After everything, she still thought she could walk back and like nothing happened. That evening, Ellie came by with a grocery bag. She saw the look on my face and set it down. She reached out. I nodded. What did she say? That we should try again. Ellie's mouth tightened. Are you considering it? I didn't even have to think. No. She let out a slow breath. Good. When I finally called my ex back, because part of me needed to say it out loud, I kept my voice calm. I got your messages, I said. She sounded tentative. I just think we had a lot of good years. Maybe we can start over. I closed my eyes. I don't want to start over. A pause. You're really going to throw everything away? I felt something settle in my chest. You threw it away. I'm just moving on. She didn't reply. Just hung up. People talk like endings are clean. Like there's a day you wake up and feel nothing. That's not true. Some mornings I still felt the old ache. The habit of looking for her on the other side of the bed. But it faded a little every day. Ellie kept coming by. Sometimes we sat in the garage while I tinkered with an old radio. Sometimes she'd bring dinner, and we'd eat in companionable quiet. It wasn't some grand romance. It wasn't a movie. It was just something real. Something good. About 2 months after she left, my ex showed up unannounced. Pulled up in that battered Honda, stepped out like she owned the place. I watched her from the porch, arms folded. She looked smaller than I remembered. Can we talk? No. Her eyes filled, but I didn't feel sorry. Just tired. Please, she whispered. I shook my head. I don't have anything left to say. Her gaze darted past me to the front window, where she must have seen Ellie's purse on the hall table. Her mouth twisted. Of course. I didn't correct her. Didn't explain. Just turned and walked back inside. Shutting the door behind me. You ever feel like you finally set something heavy down? That was me in that moment. Ellie came into the hallway, her eyebrows lifted. Everything okay? Yeah, I said, voice steady. Better than it's been in a long time. She stepped closer, rested a hand on my chest. And for the first time since all this started, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Some evenings now, I catch myself standing in the doorway of the living room, looking around like I'm trying to remember who used to live here. It's strange how fast a place stops feeling haunted, how the walls stop echoing with old arguments once you let yourself start over. I'd be lying if I said the ghosts were gone completely. Some mornings I still wake up expecting to see her hair spread across the pillow. I still look at the front walk and half expect her to come up the steps with that bored look, keys in hand, acting like she'd never left. But the difference now is, if she did, I wouldn't feel that twist in my gut. I wouldn't feel anything but relief that she was on the other side of the door. Ellie's been spending more time here. At first, we were both cautious, like maybe we were worried about what people would say. But after everything, I stopped caring. You can only be humiliated so many times before you run out of fear. The first night she stayed over, we didn't make it a big deal. We were sitting on the couch, some old western playing on mute, the empty takeout boxes stacked on the coffee table. She was laughing at a dumb story I was telling about Gus almost electrocuting himself on a busted panel. I looked over at her, and it hit me. This was what it was supposed to feel like. Not forced. Not cold. Just easy. She must have seen something shift in my face because she went quiet. Her eyes searched mine, like she was waiting for me to say it first. I didn't. I just leaned in and kissed her. And it felt more honest than anything I'd shared in years. Not everyone was thrilled. My ex's family split down the middle. Some of them called me cruel, said I'd ruined her life. Like they'd forgotten she'd walked away long before I ever packed her bags. Others quietly told me they understood, that they'd seen how she treated me and wondered how I lasted as long as I did. Carol across the street pulled me aside one day while I was hosing down the driveway. "You deserve to be happy," she said simply. That was it. No judgment. No gossip. Just a neighbor who'd watched the whole mess unfold and decided she didn't need to pick a side. Gus ribbed me about Ellie in his own way. "Guess you finally traded up," he said one afternoon on the job site, smirking over the top of his thermos. I flipped him off, but I was grinning. I won't pretend there wasn't guilt. That first month, every time I caught myself feeling content, I'd remember the years I'd spent fighting for a marriage that was already gone. I'd remember the look on my ex's face when she realized I really wasn't taking her back. It wasn't regret. Just the echo of old habit. Like a man still checking the time on a watch he doesn't wear anymore. Ellie never pushed me to move faster than I was ready. Some nights, we'd just sit on the porch, her hand resting on my knee, both of us quiet. It was enough. More than enough. A couple weeks back, my ex tried one last time to break through. She showed up in the driveway again, same old Honda sputtering as she killed the engine. I was out front, repainting the railings. I looked up, paintbrush in hand, feeling nothing but impatience. She got out, arms crossed tight over her chest. "Can we please talk?" I set the brush down on the drop cloth. "About what?" Her voice was thin, almost brittle. "About us. There is no us." She took a shaky breath. "You can't tell me you don't feel anything." I wiped my hands on a rag, studied her for a long moment. "You know what I feel? Tired. Tired of you thinking you can walk back in here and pretend none of it happened." "I made mistakes," she whispered. "No," I corrected her. "You made choices." Her eyes flicked to the front window, where Ellie's shadow was moving in the living room. "Is this what you really want?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes." She looked like she wanted to argue, but nothing came out. She just turned back to the car, her shoulders hunched like she'd finally run out of excuses. As she pulled away, I felt that old ache in my chest. But it was smaller now, duller. Something I could carry without it breaking me. That night, Ellie curled up beside me on the couch. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't need to. Instead, she laid her head on my shoulder and said, "You okay?" I nodded. "Better than I thought I'd be." She tilted her head back to look at me. "I'm proud of you." For a second, I had to look away because my throat went tight. Nobody'd said that to me in a long time. I still go to work every day, still come home smelling like metal and sweat. But now, when I open the door, there's no dread in my chest. No wondering if I'm about to be ignored or mocked. Ellie greets me with a smile that feels real. She asks about my day and actually listens. And you know what? That's more valuable than anything I thought I was fighting for before. Some people said I moved on too fast, that I should have taken more time alone. Maybe they're right, but I'd spent enough years alone in my own marriage. I'd earned the right to be happy, even if it didn't look tidy to everyone else. Sometimes, late at night, I think about the man I was a year ago. The man who kept showing up with flowers and apologies, who kept believing he could work hard enough to be loved again. I almost don't recognize him. If I could talk to that version of me now, I'd tell him this. You can't fix someone who doesn't want to be fixed. You can't save a thing that wants to fall apart. And you damn sure can't keep setting yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. The last text my ex ever sent me was short. "I hope you're happy." I stared at it a long time. Then I deleted the thread. Because I am happy. Maybe for the first time in my life, I'm not pretending. Ellie and I aren't perfect. We've got our own scars. But at least we don't lie about them. At least we're both here, really here, showing up for each other. You ever feel like you finally stepped out into fresh air after years underground? That's what this is. Not some fairy tale ending. Just an honest one. And I'll take that any day.